Around, yeah, like that.
And we're going.
Seven-ish.
That's funny. All right, good evening, everybody. Tonight is January, it's not January, it's February. It's February 2nd, 2022. And
It's
2222, yes. This is the regular city commission meeting. You can probably tell we've all been together for over an hour and a half already, so we're being very cordial and very chatty, but this meeting is called to order and we can call the roll.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Morrow.
Here.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
here.
And Mayor Rachel L. Smith.
Here. All right, will you all please join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. All right. At the agenda, ceremonies and proclamations. There is a staff report provided in the packet for the mayoral appointments for the CIC members. I'm not going to read them all off. These were all the members that the individual neighborhood associations had voted to be CIC members, and I am appointing them as requested. And that's it for ceremonies and proclamations. Item number 4 is citizen comments. I don't believe we have anybody here would like to give citizen comment? Mr. Gao, you raised your hand. Are you being serious or no?
He's waving.
He's waving. Okay. It's going to be, we're so far, we're starting off all nice and friendly. All right, we're going to move on then to no presentations, adoption of the agenda. I believe we have someone do we want to pull something from the consent agenda?
Yes, I'd like to pull item 7B.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Only one other item. All right. Do we have a motion on the agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Mr. Wiley.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Morrow.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Aye.
And Mayor Rachel L. Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. So item 7B will move to general business. We'll take it at the top of general business. So we're at item number 8, moving right along. We're at our public hearings. This is we have a request for a continuance. Ms. Aquila.
Yes, the applicant, who is also the appellant, would like to request a continuance to February the 6th.
Did they give a reason why?
No, not that I'm aware of. They did extend the 120-day period.
And we are well within that. We're not going to run up into any timelines.
Right, yeah, they extended it until, I believe it is March 18th. So we will have plenty of time between February 6th and March 8th.
Question, Commissioner McGriff?
What's the question? Were the parties to this application notified of this second continuance?
The parties to the application, so.
All of the parties to this?
Correct, yes.
They were?
Of their
question
request
is,
tonight.
Were they? Or did the request come in tonight?
No, the request came in, I think it was yesterday.
Can you be more clear of who you're
Yes,
talking
all the
about?
parties. There's the appellant, and then there are the people that participated in the public hearing. So as far as I'm aware, there were 3 parties. The applicant, the Miss Jillian Maudlin, and the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association. Those are the 3 people that are 3 entities that are on record. So I'm asking whether the other 2 received notice. Obviously, they're not here tonight, but I had received a complaint on the previous one that you and I had discussed that they didn't know that it got continued. So I was just trying to find out whether they were notified that this got continued again.
I'll have to check. I don't know. I don't know that for sure.
I don't see them on the call, so.
We can also just send out a new notice.
Sure.
So what is the deadline that we have?
March 18th is the 120-day deadline. Is that the question that you're asking?
Yes, so that gives us, so it would come back to us on what night?
February 16th.
Correct, February
So
16th.
we would have,
At a work session.
it may take 2 or 3 meetings.
It might.
I guess that's what I worry about. I mean, if we bump this once or twice and then we'll get to this point where some of these issues could be complicated. This one looks like it could be complicated. And I do not ever want to get into the situation we were in before, where somehow we don't have enough time. And then I guess I would question, the last meeting we had, it was continued, and most of us didn't really mind too much because there was no information in the packet anyway, so we had nothing to go over. Now all the information was there. A lot of us spent most of the day going through it, at least except I did after I got off work today. So I just, hopefully, I don't want this to be a continued thing where we constantly do that and then run out of time. We need the time to go through these.
The one advantage we have at this time is that this is the applicant requesting the continuance. It's not us as the city saying we need more time, it's them. So as long as they extend, my understanding is as long as they extend the 120-day period, unfortunately, this could go on for a number of meetings. I mean, it's not us making the request. So we are not at a disadvantage at this point, at least how I see it.
As time goes by, continuous building goes on, and more of the job gets completed.
Well, I don't think getting any occupants.
Okay. So is there a motion?
I'd like to move that we continue this to a date and time certain, February 16th, 2022, as requested by staff. Or actually
Second.
not requested, as indicated by staff, because we're not requesting it, sorry.
All right, motion's been made and seconded by Commissioner Marl. Mr. Wiley?
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
No?
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
No.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
Aye.
and Mayor Rachel Lyle Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I would say if you talk to the applicant, we're probably not going to continue this again, so they need to be prepared to show up. I presume we have the ability to not continue it, and if this gets put on, it's going to be put on the agenda for February 16th. So hypothetically, if they asked for a continuance again and we said no, we would have the hearing. Is that correct? All right.
And I would add, there's already 14 documents on this thing that have been read and digested, so what more could be added? So I'm with you. It's not going to get said over again.
All right. All right. So I guess to be clear, I'm asking you to relay that to the applicant or appellant so that they're clear and they're not caught by surprise. We're saying we don't want to be put into a pinch on time. We'd like to have time, and therefore we're unlikely to continue it again based on the vote that I just saw here tonight. So.
Yes, thank you for that clarity, and that was my understanding, and we will be sure to relay that to them.
And I would simply add that we're trying to process a lot of things up here, and things just stack up. And if we have a chance to disposition them, and we want to do that. So just pushing things back.
Well, and add to that, there could have been something else on the agenda tonight
Right.
that is in the stack that we could have dealt with, knowing that this wasn't going to be an issue we were going to deal with.
Are you all in general agreement of the direction I just told
Yes.
Ms. Aquila? Okay.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have
Okay.
a question for Ms. Richter, if I may.
Sure.
I presume that because this is an appeal, this is on the record, so the record is closed, so there can't be any more information submitted, and no other parties are going to be able to be intervening in this.
That is correct. All of those statements are true. There will not be any new evidence. Only those parties who participated during the proceeding before the HRB have standing to participate. And so So in that way, the world of review materials is constrained.
So to maybe clarify for Commissioner Smith, the applicant doesn't have to particularly give us a reason as to why they request a continuance. They can just request a continuance, my understanding.
But we don't have to grant it.
Well, no, I'm not arguing that point. I'm just saying they don't have to say, gee, I need more time because whatever. They don't have to say anything. They just have to request the continuance.
That is correct. And the other thing I should probably mention that Mr. Conkle just reminded me of is that the appeal issues are only those raised in the notice of appeal, and there is a singular issue raised in the notice of appeal. So there is one issue for the commission's determination.
Right.
Letting you know that I pay attention to what you say.
All right. So I guess for what Commissioner McGriff was asking about earlier about the notification, I know I saw the revised agenda come out yesterday from Mr. Wiley, which essentially let us know that this was going to be a continued item, or there was a request for a continuance. I just want to make sure that we're following up with all of the parties involved so that they're in the loop on the continuance, and so just making sure that they're being communicated with the participants. Since we're unclear as to whether or not we're communicating with them, it would be good to make sure. All right, I think we've beat this one to death. So general business is where we're at, and I said we were going to do 7B. This is OLCC liquor license application. Commissioner McGriff, do you have some questions on this for Mr. Chief Ban?
I don't know if I have questions, and there may be some questions. So this is this is not just an application for a liquor license at a restaurant or a facility. This is for a package store, which is different than any other liquor licenses we have seen in the lab. I mean, I don't even know when the one that's in the next to Bi-Mart came in, but we haven't had any of these, as far as I know, for, well, as long as I've lived here that I can think of. My concern about this particular application has nothing to do with the applicant. I don't know the applicant. I'm not familiar with the applicant. My concern has to do with the fact that we want to get on the home rule bandwagon. Maybe it doesn't have anything to do with home rule, but my disappointment is the fact that City of Oregon City was not consulted by the Oregon Liquor License Commission and Cannabis, whatever their names are now, it's too long for me to remember, about whether or not we needed a package store in our city. I think that to ignore comments by the community as to whether this was needed, they made the determination themselves that this was. They just opened a new package store in Gladstone, just on the other side of the river, near where Walgreens is. I don't know what that center is called. So it is very close to us. We have one in the Hilltop. My concern stems from the fact that this location is in our historic downtown, in our core, and knowing the nature of this type of facility, it does not really pass the smell test, in my opinion, of what makes a dynamic downtown. We are talking about in our tourism strategy, linger longer, they're in and out. I have observations from another package store that is near a retail business that I frequent regularly, a shoe repair place. Right next door is a package store. By the time I'm in there taking my shoes, I mean, the turnover is just incredible. I asked some questions of their staff about how people were notified, whether people were notified. Again, this gets beyond our control, it's not our process, but apparently there was a notice posted some time ago. There were flyers handed out to businesses within 500 feet. I think that the community was not aware of this. There was something posted on their website that there was an opportunity for public comment. Asked them, well, how would somebody have known that? Well, you'd have to look at your website. Well, how would you know to look at their website if you didn't know there was something pending? So there was a public hearing, a hearing of sorts, not necessarily open to the public, in May, where this application was considered by the Oregon Liquor Control Commission and Cannabis, whatever they're called,
Liquor and Cannabis Commission.
Commission. I just don't think that it is the right location for this type of facility, and that is one of the reasons why I wanted to pull this, because I know there's probably not a whole lot we can do about it. I don't know what the implications are of whether we said, no, we're not going to approve it. I'm not saying that we don't need one. I'm not sure that we do, but I just don't think this is the location where that type of facility. There is a drug and alcohol counseling business 2 doors down from this, have a church on Main Street, have other facilities that are going on Main Street that seem in conflict with this. And that's my concern. So it's not so much a question for you, Fan. It's just basically saying, I don't think it's the right use for this location in our historic downtown.
So Ms. Aquila, I know I'm putting you on the spot, and Tony, you may know as well. Is this an allowable use?
It is.
I assume it's an allowable
It's
use?
retail, yes. Not saying it's not planned and zoned. I'm just saying that in the scheme of things and what we want to do in our community, this is not the right location.
And so which comes first? Do they have to have a land use, all the land use process if you're establishing a new business before the liquor license, or vice versa?
So liquor licenses are interesting because when I first became a chief, I started getting these requests that I'm to deny or approve them. So I wanted to know what does this mean? What am I supposed to be looking for? It just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So I contacted OLCC and I said, what exactly is this? It's really a formality, because we can look at somebody's criminal history that may or may not inform whether or not we would approve or deny one. I said, so if there was something that we thought was problematic and we denied it, what would you do? They said, well, we really wouldn't do anything. They would put them on the equivalent of something, this administrative sort of probation, but they would still grant them their license. So whether I approved it, whether it came to the commission and the commission approved it or not, it's sort of a formality. The one change that happened to these, as you see them, Commissioner McGriff asked a few years ago just that there be some verbiage added. It was calling out to the community who would see it that the whole process for them applying for a business license and that whole piece had been done, which is on there. I don't know if it makes you feel any better. I believe this is the same gentleman who less than a year ago had done the exact same thing but applied. He was looking at the U.S. Bank location down there for the exact same thing. I did have a phone conversation with him just about some concerns about use. You've seen in other cities where people will, I have no idea if you can do this, but outlaw really cheap liquor. So you're not, cities have done this to sort of try and have some effect on who's.
Are you talking about like fortified stuff? That's super cheap, I guess. I don't drink it, so I don't know. But I've heard. I know Eugene did it.
I know his intention. He said to me, for whatever this worth, is that he wanted this to be more of a high-end sort of store, and I have no idea. But this is only the liquor license, and nothing else.
Mayor Lyle Smith, I can tell you that I listened to the entire hearing I finally found it online after asking them where it was. And at the time, there were a number of applicants who were seeking this particular license for Oregon City. And there was a lot of statements made by the chairman that, Oregon City is perfect. There's a need there. And of course, I asked the question, well, what did you base the need on? How did you determine, couldn't get an answer from the staff that helped me understand what was going on. But basically, there were probably 8 applicants or so seeking to get this particular permit to have a package store. So this is, again, it's not like a restaurant that's actually getting a liquor license. This is a package store where, as you guys were talking earlier, yes, you just go in and get it. So there were a number of people, and they selected this particular person. At the time of the hearing in May, he had been talking to people at U.S. Bank, but he had no location. And there were other things going on with that bank building that are problematic. And he'd been looking, but they said, oh yeah, you need to be in downtown. And again, the more I was listening to it, the more I got a little incensed about it because, like I said, I'm not really sure what their criteria is. There's a new one right near us. So.
All right. Well, I guess at the end of the day, it's allowed by our zoning. It's a fine location. Otherwise, we would have needed to change that in our other codes. So, I will say, isn't that we have like 9 pot shops and 1 liquor store, and that liquor store is super, super busy. So I can't imagine why we wouldn't desire to have another one for all the people who are at the bottom of the hill or wanting to drive up, or people who are, I can tell you that liquor store at the top of the hill, I'm always shocked that there's only one. So in this growing city of 35,000 people. So I'm not at all surprised we're going to have another one. So, all right. Is there a motion? We still have to make a motion on this.
Not making it.
I move to approve liquor license application 7B. What else do I need to read out the whole thing or no? That's probably it.
That's probably fine. We have a motion. Is there a second? Commissioner Morrow, I think it's up to you to make a second because everybody else is shaking their head if you don't want to.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Wiley?
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
No.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
No.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
No.
and Mayor Rachel Lyle Smith.
Aye.
Motion fails.
Motion fails.
As the chief just said, it has no impact on the granting of
But
the
we'll
license.
find out.
Yeah, we'll find
Yes, we
out.
will find
So do
out.
we need to make a motion to deny? Or are we done with this?
We're done. You don't have to deny
done.
it. You're not going to move it, so it dies. I mean, if you want to make some proclamation and move a denial, that's fine, but I think it doesn't pass, so it fails.
Well, it's, like I said, I'm doing this on behalf of the community. Like I said, it could be any place else. I just feel it's the wrong location.
There's nobody, I don't think there's anybody to
No,
serve the denial on.
yeah, okay.
So
Well, it'd be making a statement to OLCC, that's for sure.
All right. For the consideration of time, I'm going to move on. I don't know what else to do with this item. I'm kind of shocked. So we're going to move to 9A. We're still on general business. This is a resolution adopting the Oregon City Sidewalk Replacement Assistance Program. Mr. Lewis?
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I don't know if you want to stand up and take that one off really, because we're hoping for a different result. Particular item. So, before you tonight is resolution number 22, adopting Oregon City Sidewalk Replacement Assistance Program. This is a program designed to help the community with sidewalk replacements that are, or sidewalks that are damaged due to street tree roots. And you've just been before you multiple times. I thought what I would do is to have Jacob pull up the redlined version of the program, and I'll just hopefully quickly go through those for you and just give you a little update. And then it was suggested that we go through kind of the process. So I'd like to do that as well and show you the website that we have ready to go upon adoption. So that work for you? Okay. So we heard concerns about the name of the program and calling it a test. It's a program, right? The commission's talked about this being a long-standing program. It does have provisions for review in 12 months, so we've added that as well. But I just wanted to clarify that we, instead of calling it a test program, it's now just program. In the programming summarizing facts, there was some concern about a lot of the discussion there that I think was important to have when we introduced the topic, but I think the point was made that we really don't need all that language. So we've stripped that out with regard to where the funding is coming from and kind of justifying why. a lot of small edits, but the program remains as a $200,000 per year program. And if we run into that ceiling during the first 12 months, we'll bring it back to the City Commission for an update and consideration for additional funding. Let's see. There was some question about whether or not there was an actual date for when we would bring this back. And my thought is we'll get this back to the commission before the 12-month anniversary date. So probably in January of 2023, we'll come back to the commission and just give you an update on how it's going, some of the statistics that we've gathered throughout the year with regard to the program. Again, compliance history, there was just some information in there that was pertinent when we were talking about some of the justification for the program, but I've stripped that out as well. We've clarified street trees are the kinds of trees that we're focused on with this program. And so some, street trees that are on private property don't necessarily, and if they're creating damage, that wouldn't qualify for the funding that we're talking about in this grant program. So it is street trees that we're talking about. Just through the eligibility, I just think some more of the similar kinds of clarifications. I've clarified that the grant funds can be applied to the removal of the street tree. That was a big change from last meeting, which was we want to make sure that the street tree can be, the cost of removal of the street tree and the street tree roots are part of the grant program. So we made some clarifications with that. We heard some concerns about making sure the value is there, and by providing more bids or cost estimates. So we've increased that by 1 to 2 cost estimates being required. And this is for anything going forward. That doesn't apply for the look-back provisions. Look-back provisions really require an invoice or documentation of payment, not bid. Let's see. Under the funding assistance, that was the biggest, I think, change that occurred. Before we were looking at $600 per sidewalk panel, and the suggestion was made by the commission to go with $1,500 per each site, and the site was comprised of the street tree and the damaged sidewalk. So I provided some scenarios in the funding assistance just to try to make that ultra clear, because each street tree, there may be 1 panel that's disturbed, or there may be 5 panels or more that disturbed because of that street tree. So in either of those cases, there would be a maximum grant amount of $1,500 that would be documented with, that's a maximum, not to exceed. So that was a big change, and I think that clarification is hopefully what you had in mind. Just a little clarification about self-performed work, that qualifies. Yeah, the rest of these are just kind of more along the same lines of clarification. And then with that, I thought I'd go through kind of the steps that are included at the end of the document. And that way, if there's any clarifications, I can talk about that and the website at once. So I guess maybe, let's just step through this. First of all, there's a procedure for look back, and then a second procedure for work that's yet to be completed. And really the look back provisions are pretty straightforward. Our intention with there's really, for the new work moving forward, there's really 2 application forms, but for the look back, there's really only the one, which is the grant program. So people fill that out. The intention really about that form is to get folks to come in and talk to us and make sure they understand what we're looking for in terms of documentation. And that's true moving forward too with folks that are yet to complete the work. We really want them to fill out the application, come talk to us. We'll sit down with them and share with them what they need to submit and what the timelines are, what's qualifying or what's not. So that's really what that initial application is about. And then when they get ready to do the work, if they're self-performing, they'd get an application. Many folks use a contractor to do this work. We recommend that. And so the contractor could come in and actually get the permit to do the work. But there are steps to go through that. The idea would be as you move forward, you come in, you fill out, you apply for the program. We would look at that, we'd validate the location, and at that time, we'd determine whether or not you were self-performing or whether somebody else was. We'd go ahead and inform the applicant that the reimbursement program applies, and we would likely go out and look at the site and make sure it applies and kind of get an assessment of the sidewalk panels, and then make sure the property owner fully understands the program. And then before the work progresses, we'd actually ask them to get a permit for the work. So those are the two different forms. They're there's not really a high threshold for them to either get the grant or to fill out the permit. Really all about information that they're providing. So once the work happens, beyond that, then the inspector will go out, they'll be checking the forms and before they pour, and then after the work is done, we'll confirm that the finish is right and that the work met the specification. And then the property owner could bring in his proof of payment along with the quotes that they had. And we would take that in, again, verify with our inspector that the work was done and process the payment or work with our finance department to process that payment within 5 days. We did provide 5 extra days for the reimbursement program. And just because people could, bring that information in right away, I just wanted to make sure we had enough time to get out there, validate it, make sure they're the owner, those kind of things. So there is an extra 5 days in the reimbursement. But moving forward, we've got a 5-day turnaround. And there's provisions for if somebody is really, hey, I'm struggling to pay this bill, then we'll do our best to turn it around even quicker. So that's kind of the commitment that we've heard from the commission, from the finance department. So, and Jacob, can you flip to the web page link and connect to that? This hasn't gone, it is live, I found it, but we haven't promoted it yet, so we got it adopted, but just kind of wanted you to acknowledge or you to know that we've created a web page with links to the various forms, and the intention would be to refer folks to this through social media. We have yet to confirm all of those details with Kristen. I suspect based on my conversation with Tom, we'll probably see a slew of these right off the bat. So we might kind of take some of those in, those people that are paying attention, but the intention is to get something posted definitely in our newsletter. And so we'll work with Christian Brown on that information. So with that, I'm open to question, comment.
All right, I know I have 2, but I'll turn to others. Commissioner O'Donnell?
It's a simple question.
Right. So they would come to Public Works, they'd come to our First Street site, and they would come to the engineering counter, which is on the 2nd floor. Right. Same place. Yep.
We can't hear you, Frank.
Your mic's not on, Frank.
I'm sorry. Question was asked and answered. Where do you secure the paperwork to begin the process? And where do you submit the paperwork? And where do you go to seek your refund? And the answer was the same in every case. Right. And it was the First Street location, Public Works.
Yes.
That 2nd floor?
2nd floor.
Second floor. That's what we wanted. Thanks.
Other comments or questions from the commission? Commissioner Smith?
My comment will be that I appreciate the work that's gone into this. I wish it would have been done long ago. I don't think it fixes all the issues, and so my vote will reflect every meeting and every comment I've had on this topic for the last 10 years.
All right, so the comments and questions that I had, first on comment on page 6 on the exclusions. Number 1 technically isn't an exclusion, it's a statement. All the others are exclusions. And so, I mean, I get it, I can read it and understand where you're going. Is there another spot to put that statement? Or do we just let it go? I mean, I could just let it go. I'm just saying, if someone's looking, saying, oh, these are the things that are excluded, but if you read number 1, it's actually not an exclusion.
Yeah, and I think we had a little discussion about that. I wanted to leave it there just because it was,
Belongs in the
once
section.
again, emphasizing what was covered, but, we could delete that because it's stated other places.
Page 6, number 1 in the exclusions, where it says reimbursable funds may only be used. It's making a statement about how the funds may be used, which doesn't actually follow that section. That section is about things that aren't applicable or exclusions to the, yeah. It belongs someplace else, just
As
for
a
clarity.
preamble, just above that,
Or maybe just put it above it.
Yeah.
and then
Start with number 1, that would, work performed without is number 1, and then say excludes. So just above exclusions, put it in the next paragraph above it, I guess.
Yeah, you can just move it out of that section and have number 1 be work performed without prior city authorization.
Yeah.
I'm fine with leaving it in there, just to make sure we're clear to the public, because that's something that wouldn't be clear. And then the other the question I had was, in the steps and all, you call the permit a right-of-way permit. And I think our next item on the agenda is about the fee schedule and the permit fee. And in looking at that agenda item, it's not called a right-of-way permit. I mean, it's called sidewalk assistant, so like, I'm just questioning, is right-of-way permit, if someone sees that, if they're following these instructions, will they know which permit we're talking about? Because I think there's a few right-of-way permits in there. So is there a better word or language that we could put in here to be more clear about which permit we're talking about?
the 2 documents.
Well, this is a right-of-way permit. When we do the work, it'll be no different than any other permit. Lots of kinds of work qualify under that right-of-way permit. And
Okay.
so the program application has got a different name for it.
Are you saying that's common practice, that we say you have a right-of-way permit, and then when someone comes in, the staff looks at the fee schedule and they decide which permit is applicable, which right-of-way permit? Because when I looked at the fee schedule, again, this is the next item, I think, on the agenda, there's a whole section of them, right?
Yeah. So, yes, there can be lots of different kinds of work performed under that permit. Under the fee schedule, though, just keep in mind that the reduced fees only apply to this program.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. I'm like, we're being very specific about which permit and which fee is being applied, so.
I think we were just wanting to keep it simple on, staff will know. Lots of times people don't know what permit they're going to get, but staff are there to kind of issue that permit for them. So,
So that's just my comment. I guess I'd look to the rest of the commission. If you have any direction, we can leave it as is, obviously, or
My sense is that your goal was to get the 2 documents to match up in terms of language. Is that correct, and avoid any confusion?
yes. Well, and I thought it was a very general term. It's a right-of-way permit. So I was like, okay, so then our next agenda item has the actual fee schedule. And I just was thinking, does it need to be that plain? And I was just wondering if it would be obvious. I think for most of our stuff, the complaints we hear is that our processes and stuff are not obvious. They're not easy to understand and for people to follow. So we have to kind of go through this to make sure we're really clear.
So if I'm hearing you, you'd like to have a permit that was specific to sidewalk, even though it would be repetitive to any other kind of work. So if we had like a work in the right of way, but wasn't a sidewalk permit, I mean, there's a long list of things that happen in the right of way that we cover under that one permit.
So I guess so I see maybe where my confusion is. So I'm tying this to the fee schedule and you're tying it to an actual permit application. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
So there's a generic right-of-way permit that someone is going to
Right.
fill out, and that applies to
multiple
any
kinds
type of
things.
right-of-way things.
Right.
And that's why it's generic, and then you use the fee schedule to be very specific.
Right.
I gotcha. Okay, so yeah, so I was confused. I was misunderstanding.
No, I agree with you. I mean, maybe you put
I'm with you, yeah.
in parentheses behind one permit, you say handled under right-of-way permit, so that people make the link. But I don't want to stumble over things. I want to get this done.
Okay. So I get it. I was not following. I guess I was looking at the two agenda items back to back, and I see now. There's only one right-of-way permit.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. I got there. Sorry, it took me a while, but I got there.
As to
All right. Are there any other questions? If not, do we have a motion?
I would like to move that we adopt Resolution 22-02, adopting the Oregon City Sidewalk Replacement Assistance Program.
second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Wiley?
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
No.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
Aye.
and Mayor Rachel Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, so as I was just talking about, our next item on the agenda is a resolution modifying the Public Works Engineering fee schedule. I believe this is a result of us asking for a reduced fee schedule for this sidewalk program. Sorry, Mr. Lewis, I'm kind of covering it for you, kind of. You've put in the red lines, you've added I think you cut the fees in half, right? So if I were an individual and I'm looking at the fees and I'm coming in, I've got to submit the right-of-way permit and I have to pay for an application and plan review and an inspection, if I'm reading all the materials correctly.
That's
Correct, which is 60 and 28. So anybody wanting to participate in the grant program would pay $88 in permit fees, correct?
Unless they did a group permit.
Unless they did a group, I'm saying an individual, okay?
Right.
And then if there was some need for a reinspection, there's the add-on of 45, but that's only in the cases of some need to go out and do it again, so.
Right. There's another reinspection item in there, and that applies. That wasn't triggered by this program. That's just been a problem that we wanted to resolve, where we've got, let's say, a developer or a project that's not associated with the Sidewalk Assistance Program, where we've seen multiple calls for inspections, and it does cost money to send staff out to do those inspections. So we'd like them to be ready for their inspections, when lots of times they just call them in and they're not ready. So.
And
But yeah, other than that,
go back out again and again and again is what you're saying?
right,
Yeah.
right. Other than that, we basically split everything under the public street sidewalk group permit and the public street sidewalk permit by 50%, which is what the commission requested.
So you're saying, just to make sure I'm understanding all of this correctly, as the average homeowner, if I wanted to replace or needed to replace a tree on my property, which I do, in the planter strip, and I'm coming to you and not participating in the grant, I would have to pay like $200 in permits. Let's see, application review, $176 in an inspection and application and plan review.
For for sidewalk repairs. Is that what you're asking? You said trees.
Yeah, if I were to go in and I think I'm supposed to get a permit to plant a tree any other time, right? In the planter, if I wasn't trying to participate in the assistance program. Is that true?
Yeah, so not the tree. Not necessarily the tree. So, the tree would be, that's typically handled through planning.
Oh, okay.
And it's a free permit to remove, and I think, I don't think they charge for the replanting of the tree.
I was going to say, if I'm reading this wrong, we've got some messed up fees. That people, I don't expect anybody to pay $175 to plant a tree for us, so anyway.
No,
Okay,
that's free.
That's a great answer, Mr. Lewis. Free is a good one. Any other comments or questions on the fees? Are you happy with the 50% reduction? Is this the fee schedule you were hoping to see? Or less?
I'm
I
happy with
I
it.
hope it's not going to be an impediment, because obviously they're getting reimbursed for the work, but they're not getting reimbursed for the permit.
I want to say the permit, unless we change that in one of our iterations, but the permit would be a reimbursable charge. The difference, or assuming that they exceeded $1,500, then it might not be, but if they could get the work done with the permit, they could submit with the permit as part of that reimbursable. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's clear then. Okay, well, I would move that we adopt Resolution 2203, modifying the Public Works Engineering fee schedule and amending Resolution 21-05.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? I want to make sure everybody gets their.
Well, Mr. Lewis and I had a discussion about the additional fee if needed, and he explained exactly why it could be needed and why it doesn't fall under the 50 percentile rule. I understood, so I'm ready to move on with it.
Okay, just checking. All right, motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Wiley?
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl. Aye. Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Aye.
And Mayor Rachel Lau Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Moving on in the agenda, we're at number 9C. This is a resolution calling for the completion of the Regional Mobility Pricing Project prior to a decision on tolling for the I-205. On tolling I-205 and construction of the Abernethy Bridge. We've talked about this, I believe at our last meeting or last work session about bringing a resolution back. This is in line with what I brought to you all from City of West Lynn and City of Lake Oswego. City staff were kind enough to put together this resolution. As stated, they've followed most of the language, I think, from City of Lake Oswego. I don't know if any other comments or discussion.
Nope.
All right, is there
We definitely need to do this, send a message, and all the cities, I believe, are in lockstep with this, including several of the county commissioners who've also expressed concerns that you've mentioned in your C4 meeting, so thank you so much for bringing this forward.
And I guess I would just follow up and say, once we pass this, when I've talked to Mayor Walters and Mayor Buck about what they are doing with their resolution, they are providing the resolution to the Oregon Transportation Commission as part of public comment when they're, they've had a couple of meetings on this reason. One was January 20th, I believe was the last OTC meeting. So that is an option for us. And we've been organizing and providing public comment at the OTC meeting. So the next one that comes up, this may be an opportunity. I know I gave public comment probably about 6 months ago. So if I do that again, we could also submit this resolution. So I think there's general consensus on that. I just kind of want to let you know, I was thinking this was one way that we would use this resolution going forward as part of public comment to OTC.
If there's an opportunity that you need us to be there, just to be enforced, not to say anything, but just to show our faces, or please let us know so we can participate.
Do we have a motion on this yet? I know I started
No,
talking.
I'd like
Okay,
to-
I didn't think
yeah,
so.
I'd like to move we approve Resolution 2206, calling for the completion of the regional mobility, et cetera, and other funds.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Wiley?
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Aye.
And Mayor Rachel Lau Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Thank you, staff, for putting that together for us.
Yep, thank you, staff.
Item number 9D. We have a lot of general business tonight. So this is, the next three are all resolutions regarding the charter amendments that we have talked about in a couple of work sessions. So the first one up is measure amending section 7, 8, and 9A of the charter to eliminate numbering of positions on city commission to the electors of Oregon City. I'm not sure if we need discussion or any comment. This is really a moving forward with stuff that we've already talked about. Commissioner McGriff?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Conkle, could you again reiterate to me what is going to be the cost of doing this? I know when we had a previous measure, it was around $30,000 to $35,000. Is that still the going rate, or is inflation taking hold of the fees from the county clerk's office as well?
I don't think there'll be minimal cost because it's the primary year. So the May and the November elections in this year, 2022, there'll be some administrative costs, but it's not if we would have gone in May of 23, we would have been responsible for paying our share of the election cost based on how many ballot measures were submitted for that election.
So there's no cost to submit this title to the clerk's office always charges.
There's minimal administrative costs, but it's not the $30,000 to run an election.
Like $100 or something, probably.
So if we submit the title, it's, under $200 or something to that degree?
I'd have to, I can look up what the fee structure is from the county.
I just want to make sure that the public knows that, because I've already heard, how come we're spending $30,000? I don't think we are, but I'll ask the question.
Well, they have to understand the difference between a special election and
Yeah,
something versus.
that's what I was trying to explain, and,
Yeah.
But I guess one of the only comment I want to make about, I'm just going to lump all three of them together. So I know that you are all aware that we just recently did interviews to hire a consultant to help us with our diversity, equity, and inclusion, and whatever we're going to call it. So for now, I'm just going to call it DEI. The charter is more than likely one of the many documents involving our permits and not permits, but our processes and policies that is probably going to get looked at. So one of my concerns is that we may be a little bit ahead of ourselves, because there may be other things that need to be changed in the charter, or at least brought to more current. I think we talked about the he, she thing that's in there. And while I don't want to create yet another process for us, but maybe the recommendation coming out of DEI might be that we create in a later year a charter review committee to deal with some of the things that might be coming up as a part of the DEI work, or as part of grammar, and again, I tried to figure out with Mr. Kabizman whether we could just change the he, she, because it was correcting things, not changing the intent. So I guess that would be one of the things that I would just bring to your attention, that there may be other things in our charter that might need to be looked at. And I will be honest with you, it has been a little while since I read the whole thing in its entirety. I've read parts of it, because of our work. I haven't gone through the whole thing. So I just wanted to bring that out, because I've been contacted by a number of citizens who feel very strongly about the fact that we might need a charter review committee, but I'm prefacing it again with the fact that it's going to be done as part of our diversity, equity, inclusion work. So thank you.
Yes, and I'll respond real quickly, and then I'll go to Commissioner Morrow. I agree with you. I think we've talked about that. We've all recognized that. So if folks are listening online, we're not skirting that. I think that's going to come. It was really important for us to tackle substantive issues. These three are changes to process, how people are elected. I consider these very substantive in nature versus those items that I think we could put on a ballot of saying we're doing housekeeping cleanup, doing grammatical fixes, pronoun fixes, stuff like that throughout. I believe City of Gladstone may have recently done that. And so that was the way they worded it. And so just thinking of, we've already talked about this with these three, of how do we package each one of these amendments or these charter changes? So, I think it's coming. And I think this commission, just for people that are watching, this commission fully supports that. And I think that'll be next on the agenda with the DEI. So, but with this commission, we really wanted to move forward with things this year that we thought were really important to us, to this particular group of people. Commissioner Morrow.
Thank you, Mayor. And I totally agree. And I just want to say, I wouldn't agree to Commissioner McGriff's point that we might be getting ahead of ourselves. I would argue the exact opposite, that we are behind, that most of our peer cities do this process for electing their, in their case, mostly councilors. So I definitely agree that we need to be continuing to look at our main document and how we can bring it up to today's standards. But just as the mayor said, these are some big systematic things that I think are pretty clear to at least some of us who wanted to bring this up that we need to address. And then on its different note, on the measure explanatory statement for county voters pamphlet in Exhibit B, just to point out in the second paragraph, there is a period missing in between. If approved, the charter amendment would eliminate the numbering of positions, and then there should be a period instead every 2 years, et cetera.
Yes, I did see that too. So did staff catch that? We're talking about Exhibit B for the agenda item that we are on, the measure explanatory statement for county voters pamphlet. In the second paragraph, the first sentence of the second paragraph does not have a period. Yep.
In between positions and instead.
Yep. In between the word positions and instead. Thank you, Commissioner Morrow.
And I also had one more thing, actually.
Okay.
So it says council president. In the third paragraph, it says the city commission, including the mayor, will then select the council president. We should be saying commission president.
Yep.
So that was just another small thing. And then do we need to include the swearing in dates? Because I know that was in the original one, and I see that it has about the swearing in of commission president, but I didn't know if that was necessary to have for everyone else.
Right, hold on.
I'm not following that last comment. Can you repeat that again?
So in the charter as it is, it has a specific procedure for when the first meeting of the commission will be to swear in new members. And as I'm seeing it right now, it only has that for the proposed charter language. It just has that detail for the commission president. And so I just wanted to make sure we didn't need to also include and commissioners or mayor if they are elected at that time as well. I just wanted to double check.
Not a big change.
Are you talking about Section 7 of the Exhibit C charter provisions?
I'm talking about what Jacob has up. It says the commission shall meet at 8 o'clock p.m. on the first Wednesday in January, blah, blah, blah. And then it talks about electing the commission president and that they would be sworn in. And I believe in the original charter as it is right now, it also says something about when the commissioners should be sworn in as well. And I don't think it's there.
Enter the part about the, which part is not there? I lost you.
The part where the commissioner is not the commission president, as it says in 9A.
Review the charter real quick. I don't think that we had a specific swearing in date for newly electeds. We kept the language that the term of, in Section 7 Commission, the term of office of each commissioner shall commence on the second day of January after the election of that commissioner in the preceding November.
Oh, perfect. Yes, that's exactly what I was talking about. I apologize for that. I just wanted to make sure. I know that other cities have had issues trying to figure out the swearing in date and how all those go about. So I just wanted to make sure we had everything correct. I appreciate that clarification.
Westland doesn't have a specific date. Ours is pretty specific.
I would just point out the one substantive addition in Section 8 commissioners. The existing charter, the last sentence says, no person may file for more than one position in any single election. So in the proposed charter language, I did add as the last sentence for Section 8 commissioners, no person may file for both the commissioner and mayor position in any single election. So that was really the only change that wasn't on the previous draft that you saw as a proposed charter language.
That allows you to completely wholesale replace Section 8 with new language. Clean language. All right. Are there any other comments and questions? We've kind of talked about all three of these things kind of in general, but we're on 9D. Commissioner Morrow, is that a new hand that you have or an old hand?
No, sorry about that.
Commissioner Smith.
Just in general, on all three of these, I know we've had public ask us questions on how we feel about any of these. I'm still mixed on some of these, you know, and partly because every campaign I ran under these rules, and so that's the reality, and that's just the way it is, and I don't really have any real passion to change it one way or another. Doesn't mean that I don't feel that the citizens that wanted us to have this conversation don't have a right to vote on it. So I'm just going to say that, you know, I understand the citizens bringing this together and constantly asking why there's positions, which it never really has made sense. It makes sense in the sense that if at one point this city had individual neighborhoods that represented certain positions and that happened, that would make sense. That hasn't, you know, really been the case. So I understand the kind of public questioning of that. We've clearly had the conversation about term limits. I actually like the way it is now in the sense that you take 2 terms, you take a 2-year break, and you can run again. I personally am used to that. That's what we've been doing, and I'm okay with that. But the other piece on the, and I think that I'm okay definitely with the change in the appointments, but what I'm trying to get to tonight is whether or not those of us up here vote yes or not to put this on the ballot doesn't mean that we're voting yes or not to it when we go to vote. That's why we're sending it to the voters to tell us, you know, what they want the city to move forward with. And quite honestly, I feel like these issues were brought to us by the citizens to address it. And so we're putting it out there.
Commissioner McGriff?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Lyle Smith. So I know of one citizen who's an appointed brought this forward. And I think I have been sort of ambivalent about it, but I've been doing my research. I do support the clarification in the charter regarding the term for the mayor because I thought that was convoluted and I think it was put in there originally for spite. So I want to see that go away. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Anything else from staff?
Are we going to take these one at a time? Because now that, I guess my question would be, did anybody find anything else in the other 2? Because I thought I caught them all. So
Yeah, when I was reading, I only saw the period miss that Commissioner Morrow brought up.
The council.
Is that one for me?
And the change of council to commission.
Yeah, I've got those 2 in
Yeah.
the first one. Okay.
All right.
Ready to take a,
He's being prepared.
Reading is good. Reading is good.
Yeah, I guess the last thing I'll say is I understand the conflict on the term limits. I do think that the way our current charter reads is confusing. It's super confusing.
No, I agree.
And this does give us a chance to really clean that up and make it really straightforward. In fact, I remember either when I ran, I think it was maybe when I ran for the mayoral position, someone was questioning and challenging our language because it was so confusing. as to whether or not they
I know.
could run and all this kind of stuff. And I'm not talking about, in fact, I don't even know who the person is. I just remember it coming up and what the issue was. And so just to be clear, our language in this area is super confusing, and we're trying really hard to clean it up. But yeah, we'll see where the voters land. So whoever makes the motion on 9D, I believe you need to incorporate the edits that we've talked about. In your motion, you're making edits to Exhibit C, no, Exhibit B. Okay, so I'm just,
Okay, I will move to approve resolution number 22-07, submitting a measure amending section 7, 8, and 9A of the numbering of positions on city commissions to the electors of Oregon City with the added edits in item 8B, including the period in the second paragraph of the pamphlet statement and removing the verbiage council president and replacing with commission president.
is that a sufficient motion for legal? Yes, okay. There's been a motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Wiley?
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
Abstain.
and Mayor Rachel Lau Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Resolution number 22-08 is item number 9E. We've talked about this when this is about the term limits. I don't believe we have any edits to the language here or exhibits. Great motion.
I did want to mention we do have a public comment for item 9E.
Oh, okay.
So Betty Mum.
You didn't, okay. Hello. I think you know the rules, but I'll say them for the record. State your name and your city of residence for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Betty Mum, Oregon City, citizen of. Term limits, I've been before you before, advocating for charter review. We have not done the grammar part of the charter, taken that to a vote. So I've listened to all of our meetings, all of your meetings. Each one of you has stated that you did not feel like this would pass. So my concern is that if you, which I strongly support, 9D, so if you put all 3 of these on there, my concern is you're going to get no, no, no. So I'm asking that you consider maybe just putting 1 on and having that be the 9D. So I'm here asking for you to not set you up, you set yourself up to fail. If you feel like it's not going to pass, then think about not putting it on there and putting 1 on there, and hopefully that will pass. And I really, really, really encourage you to have a charter review committee, please. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Mum. All right. Is there any discussion or questions about item 9E? Commissioner McGriff.
I think we've talked about this quite a bit. I think I previously stated that I don't support removing term limits for city commissioner, and that I support clarifying the language for the mayor's position, that it should also be 2 4-year terms. So that's all I really want to say about it. This does not really address that.
If there's no other comment, do you have any comments, Commissioner O'Donnell?
we're just revisiting the same points we made before. And I choose not to do that. And in the end, you have to have some faith in the very people that elect you, that the electorate, the people that vote. So let's put it out there. Let's hope they read it individually. Let's hope they address them individually. And let's see what we get for an outcome. But in the end, they are the voters, we are the voters, and let's see what the outcome is.
Okay. Yeah, there's certainly pros and cons, and we've talked about all of them at length, and so, yeah.
Very open-minded. I think one of the good attributes of this commission is that we are able to have really great discussions, and I appreciate it. It's very refreshing.
Is there a motion on this resolution? We're on 9E. This is regarding term limits. If none of you support this item, then we can toss it at this point. I don't know that I ever said that I'm not sure that it will not get passed by the voters. I have no idea what the voters are going to do. I think generally term limits, if they're thinking about what's happening at the federal level, then they're going to probably not know generally about the local level and get that confused. But
It's a very different situation between the federal level and a volunteer service city community that these positions represent. So I would move to approve Resolution 9E, correct?
yes,
That reads Resolution number 2208, submitting a measure amending sections 7 and 9 of the Oregon City Charter to remove term limits for the city commissioner and mayor positions to the electors of Oregon City.
I'll second that.
motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Wiley?
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
No.
and Mayor Rachel Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
See what the people say. All in sync. All right. Resolution number 22-09. This is our last of the 3 of ballot measures. This is regarding the appointments of Planning Commission and Historic Review Board members, changing it from being a mayor-only appointed positions for those 2 bodies, the quasi-judicial bodies, and changing that to be a vote by the entire city commission, or an appointment by the entire city commission. Did anybody find any corrections to the ballot language that was provided? Okay. If there's no other discussion, is there a motion?
I will move to approve resolution number 22-09, submitting a measure amending section 20 of the Oregon City Charter to authorize city commission rather than the mayor to appoint planning commission and historic review board members to the electors of Oregon City.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Wiley?
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
Aye.
and Mayor Rachel Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. We're on to item 10 on our agenda. This is communications. Mr. City Manager.
Let me do that real quick.
Got him off guard. We're moving fast.
Aye, good. Attachment, there's too many attachments. So the first is just more of an update for the city commissioners. As part of the passage of House Bill 3071, all elected city officials become mandatory abuse reporters in the state. So we've provided a summary of the new duties and sources for more information. Both myself, Chief Ban, Mr. Wiley, and Mr. Foyles, if you have questions about what this means, or if something comes up that you want to talk about, we're obviously here as resources for that. So I don't have a whole lot more to add other than just making the commissioners aware.
So for the public, can you clarify abuse of who or what? Are we talking about any abuse we see in our community, or are you talking about city staff kind of our interaction with the city.
This is dealing more with abuse that you see out in the community. Obviously, children, elderly.
Domestic abuse, elderly, any type of abuse that should be reported to some authority. Okay. Just trying to be more clear.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner McGriff?
Thank you, Merrill L. Smith. Mr. Conkle, do you have any little bit of a backstory? I was trying to do a little more research as to why elected officials were singled out. I would think that anybody in the community or wherever they live would have a duty to report. So this to me kind of applies to everybody.
I don't have the legislative history. Mr. Wiley might be able to add a little bit more.
What I was reading online, there had been sort of a discussion as to whether the city commission would have already been a required mandatory reporter due to the city offering child services through the library and the aquarium program or aquatics program. It was kind of up in the air and unclear. So the legislature replaced the terms that applied to the legislature themselves and expanded it to all governing bodies, meaning making it clear that you would be required to report for child abuse, elder abuse, those kinds of things.
So only electeds, or would it be anybody that's appointed?
The definition I saw said elected officials.
Okay, that's what I thought I saw too.
Not appointed.
If you,
okay.
on one of the links down at the bottom, it says who are mandatory reporters. Mandatory reporters are public and private professionals required by law to report suspected child abuse. Some examples of mandatory reporters include medical practitioners, law enforcement personnel, employees of a public or private organization providing child-related services or activities, public and private school employees, and members of the clergy. There's a larger complete list.
Yeah,
under the
chiropractors,
ORS.
doctors, attorneys, audiologists.
All right, any other questions or comments on this item? Mr. Conkle, do you have anything on the hotspot parking meter update?
Yep, thank you. So staff has been working with coming up with what it's called hotspot. So it's the ability to pay for parking spots rather than using the credit card machine kiosks that are located downtown. So you'll be able to use a mobile app to make your payments for the time that you'll be parking there. Staff is training beginning next week. This will allow us to test the system on the user side and the staff side before going live. Meter stickers, so you would essentially be able to either have the app or a QR code will be on the signs that are up, as well as the kiosks, to allow you to either, like I said, download the app for frequent users, or just click onto, like you would at a restaurant with the QR codes that we're seeing nowadays, to get into the system to be able to make your payments at that location. We are looking at launching this probably the week of February 14th. We've already been in communication with the Downtown Oregon City Association. So over the next couple of weeks, you'll start to see the signs going up, getting the stickers onto the machines downtown, and then the final rollout and product available to the public by hopefully the end of this month.
Ooh. Commissioner Smith?
I think it was mentioned there was going to be some conversation. I assume the conversation in the future is not, well, simplify it, I guess. Right now, if you park for 2 hours, you move your car. It's every 2 hours or something. I think you mentioned that was a conversation that was going to come up, but that conversation hasn't happened yet. It's not part of this first rollout. So this first rollout is just a second way to pay.
Correct.
And then some discussions about some of those other details are probably coming in the near future and will be adjusted as we see how this works, right?
Correct. Yes, we have a transportation demand management team that meets. We had Rick Williams come out and do an updated parking study, and with that we're working through recommendations, reaching out to some other organizations for their input, and then we'll bring that to the commission in a work session to have that discussion about recommended changes to manage the existing parking, potentially expand it, rates. It'll be all inclusive.
And we don't know yet at what point we're going to have a conversation about new parking stations versus parking meters and what
That was my
sections and all of that, because I know that's coming.
Can I turn it over to Chief Band on that one? I know him and Captain Clare have been talking about that.
So we're trying to sort of balance technology and paying by an app or by phone with people who have a comfort level of that. And so what our plan is, another thing that we've run into is some of the emails you folks have seen. At some point in time, they started printing credit cards on thinner stock.
Right.
And so that's created a problem for some of the kiosks we have. So we're looking right now at, we've got some pricing on replacing some of the kiosks we have, but our plan is to reduce the number of kiosks. We feel like the majority of people are going to use the app, but for people who aren't comfortable with an app, there will be some kiosks down there so that somebody might have to walk a block and a half, and we'll sign it so that if they're not comfortable, you can walk to this location, maybe have a map to where those kiosks are. So that's all in process, and sort of also adding, the area down by OC Brewing, that whole area has never really been a consideration. So a lot of our conversations about all of this are sort of looping in an area that in the past didn't have a whole lot of concerns or need for parking. It was mostly permit. So we're looking at that area as well.
Okay. I'm fine with all that. I guess the one thing I would say, and I understand that having the app version would possibly minimize the amount of future machines we need, and that's good. I just would say if we start adding new machines, don't do it unless we remove all the other ones, because not what I mean, I'm not talking about parking meters, but the machines themselves, if they're not consistent, like, let's say I don't know how many there are now, but let's say we go down to like half because we know we have this app version. Hopefully we just don't place one or two here and there, and we still have the old ones if we switch them over, we switch them over. And it happens because right now there's at least a couple machines that are different than the other ones. And so if you go from one to another, it's a whole different process. And if we're going to start swapping them out, we need to do it like overnight and it's done.
That's the plan.
Okay.
They're about $12,000 a piece. So we're really going to try and balance need with how much money that is.
What's going to happen to the parking meters per se? With the ones that are coin operated?
Probably for a while.
Are we talking about, I hope we're getting rid of those.
That is the plan. That is why switching to this app and stopping the whole nickel dime quarter thing.
Okay, so I guess let me ask just as sort of an esoteric question. So, example, yesterday, I knew I was going to be downtown for about 20 minutes. I don't want to put 50 cents on my credit card. I just put 2 quarters in the thing, got my ticket. So is that still going to be an option?
Well, you're not. Now, I do not know the minimum amount of time that you can buy on the app. I can get you the answer to that question. Obviously, a coin machine, you could put a dime in if you know you're going to be there for 5 minutes. I do not. I'm assuming there's some type of graduated amount of time.
Well, I'm not talking about using the app at all. I'm talking about using the kiosk that you can put 50 cents in, and I was going to be there for, a half an hour, and I didn't want to put 50 cents on my credit card.
Yes.
So they'll still be there.
Yes, there's still going to be kiosks. We're just looking at trying to reduce the number of them and sort of getting people to use the app. That is a good question though. Let me find out what exactly. One of the things, frequent users, you can either pay, if you have the app, you can either pay and choose to use every time, or I can't remember was it 35 cents or something every time you use it? But then there's also an option for frequent users that it can be an amount that is, I think it was a couple bucks a month or something like that for frequent users.
So then how does our wonderful staff in parking control know that you're using the app?
Software.
Oh, the software will tell them?
It's very easy. All they have to do is enter a plate.
Okay, and then they'll say, oh, you're using the app or you're using the kiosk because you'll have your ticket on the dashboard.
Yeah.
So is there any significance to the name. I mean, when I hear the word hotspot, to me, that means there's some internet space in the ether that you can hotspot to. It's just a trade name.
It's just the name of the business.
Okay, and it's in the App Store.
Like some people have heard of Parking Kitty, if you've been downtown in
Yeah.
Portland. Parking Kitty was a name that a vendor gave to, that is we thought the company was Parking Kitty. They chose to name their program.
Their software, Parking Kitty, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I will say this for the public, that I was downtown yesterday, as I frequently am downtown, and I will say I want to give a shout out to our parking control staff. As I came upon the meter that I was going to put my money in, there was a person there obviously wasn't familiar with that, and she was looking puzzled, and she was starting to say, well, what do I do? And just as I was getting ready to explain how to do it, Max walks up. Their credit card was too thin. Gave the little example of, we'll take a little business card and stick it part away in there and it'll work, and boom, it worked. So hats off, thank you for that, tutorial. And it happened to be the people were going to the same place I was going. So when I came in, I mean, they didn't know me from Adam. I just said, they said, that guy was really nice. I said, yes, he is. So anyway, thank you, staff, for, coming upon the people, and they really do go out of their way to try to help somebody. And, my trick is if I'm using the kiosk, I only use the one by the courthouse, because it'll take my credit card and I know it'll work. But that's just me, because I know where it is and I know that little trick. But I was further down the street. So kudos to the staff.
All right, Mr. Conkle, do you have any other things for us tonight?
Nothing else tonight, thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any communications for us? Commissioner McGriff?
I do, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to the staff. Commissioner Smith and I attended the first meeting of the bridge planning celebration. So I think that where we're going with it is let's celebrate our connections. Celebrating our connections is in running for a theme. And it was a great meeting. We had great participation, great enthusiasm. Tony provided his usual guidance and help, and everybody went away all excited. They were still talking in the parking lot when I left, so that was particularly exciting. Want to add anything to that?
No, it was good.
Good time was had by all.
Good. Any other community? Done. All right, seeing none, I don't believe I have any tonight either. So for the record, we did have an executive session earlier tonight before we started. We are about to head into an additional executive session as indicated on our agenda. And with that, we're adjourned.